Put On Your White Sombrero was recorded in 1980 towards the end of ABBA's recording sessions for one of their final albums, Super Trooper. But they didn't continue with the recording and completely forgot about it until they were listening to some of ABBA's outtakes in 1994. When Put On Your White Sombrero came on, apparently they couldn't believe what they had.
Put on your white sombrero, like all the cowboys do.
Hey, so in this series we are exploring songs that were initially stored away as outtakes, but which were rediscovered by ABBA themselves. Last time we talked about their most recent redeemed outtake, Just an Ocean. You all gave some tremendous feedback and discussion in the comment section below. So before we continue today, I'd like to add some highlights of your observations regarding Just an Ocean. I really enjoyed a special praise by Michael Snydero, who wrote that this song really proves how timeless ABBA are, when Benny can tweak a 45-year-old song and bring it together seamlessly on a new album with new songs. I personally agree with the meticulous flow of this song as part of Voyage, and I talked about this in more detail in our Voyage series part 5, Just an Ocean. The song also got praise for its vibes of pure joy, being one of ABBA's very few songs without any real melancholic undertones. Eduardo Oscar compared the addictiveness of Just an Ocean with Take a Chance on Me. We also discussed the coda of the song. Now my personal take regarding the end is that they recorded new vocals for the song's conclusion. A very good point came from both Ian Hullard and Ryan Simeoni. Back in the day, Björn and Benny couldn't come up with an ending to the song to wrap it up. I also said that we have conflicting opinions and no confirmation about this coda. Well, Quart Interval and Duke of Dark Corners reminded me of another new quote by Björn, which I certainly should have included last time. Now Benny has recorded a new backing track to which we've added drums and guitars, but all vocals are from the original 1978 tracks. Thank you to Quart Interval and Duke of Dark Corners. We are now going back to 1980 when ABBA recorded a song that would also not be released at the time. Put On Your White Sombrero is one of several ABBA songs with a Latin American influence. Just recently we mentioned their very own Fernando and Chiquitita, and we can really trace back ABBA's exploration of the music and styles of Latin America. As we recently discussed, ABBA's success in Latin America really took off when they recorded Chiquitita as an additional Spanish version in 1979. In early 1980, Agnetha and Frida recorded an entire album of ABBA songs in Spanish. And now they are really digging deep into the flavor with Put On Your White Sombrero. I feel that this song has certainly the strongest Latin American vibes in ABBA's catalog. Carl Magnus Palm describes it as a Mexican-flavored song and compares its synthesizer playing with the Mexican music genre mariachi. That genre also has influences from other music, including waltzes. Sombrero kind of feels like a waltz too. ABBA did record some waltzes every now and then, including the songs Move On and Soldiers, or even Björn and Benny's very first composition ever, Isn't It Easy to Say. But they often conceal the waltz style by blending in other roots and rhythms. Exactly all of this Latin American influence seemed to have been the reason why they didn't release the song at the time. Benny said that they probably felt they were overdoing the Latin American bit, objecting now that it is a pretty nice song with good choirs on it. They're a bit Walt Disney. The Spanish roots for Put On Your White Sombrero seem to have always been there from the beginning. It started with the working title Spansk 2, which is Swedish for Spanish 2, and evolved into the obscure title Pig Party on Mallorca. You can sing this title to the syllables of the final version.
Pig party on Mallorca, saddle your pig, my dear.
We don't know if those were the exact lyrics, but there were quite elaborate lyrics for a third working title, which was called Padre, which I think is Spanish and or Italian for father or dad. The final lyrics of the song have been a slight mystery to me in early years, but again, as a non-English native, you just have to read them separately from the music, and it's a fascinating story told by Björn with an intriguing choice of words, rhyming, and subtlety. As I understand it, it's the story of a woman bidding farewell to her man or lover, but it's more like a send-off and actually quite a female empowerment. We will see how important the addition of Agnetha will be later in the song, not only sonically, but in context of those lyrics. Frida as lead vocalist for this story is a perfect choice. She gives it that mixture of vulnerability and strength. She describes her partner as an old-fashioned hero, as a vaquero, which is Spanish for cowboy, and as a caballero, Spanish for gentleman. But she somehow uses those names in conflict of how it all went between them. You'd better go, for there is no place for you here. You think our life is a movie. My world is real. I live and feel, and I can do without you. So there is emotional depth, and those feelings, I live and feel, are picked up later in the song when she sings how she'll cry while he's disappearing. But she's still sending him away. She's proclaiming that he should think of this day as a showdown. Goodbye, my friend, this is the end for me and you. She's even turning her sincerity of feelings against him. Be a bold vaquero, don't show your feelings. This irony is somewhat emphasized by what happens with the vocals at that moment. It is the first time in the song that we get harmonies from Agnetha, a repetition and variation of the word vaquero. It makes the ironic tone of the lyrics even stronger.
Now be a bold vaquero. Don't show your feelings. I cry while you're disappearing. Turn out for a sea white and shame free without me.
For the final verses of the song, the lyrics really go full on with empowerment, embracing the situation and the woman's own personality. Go find a sweet señorita, somebody meek who'll never speak harshly to you. I want someone who will take me just as I am. I need a man who is in rhyme with his time. What could be better to epitomize this empowerment than the ultimate combination of Agnetha and Frida's vocals? On our comment section for Just a Notion, the Frida fan described the blend of vocals of that song as the third voice to the max. I love that description, and Put on Your White Sombrero really sits right next to it. So sit back and absorb these incredible vocals and harmonies in isolation.
Put on your white sombrero, like all the cowboys do. Go find a sweet señorita, somebody meek who'll never speak harshly to you.
This metallic blending of vocals towards the end of the song is the absolute maximum. Listen again.
You're such a caballero. Just as I am, I need a man who is rhyme with his mind.
And what did they do with a recording like that? Well, just leave it there. It was never released back then. Musically, we did get some traces of the song 2 years later on one of ABBA's final recordings at the time. The arrangement and the 6/8 tempo was adopted for Cassandra. If we combine the ending of Put on Your White Sombrero and the cold ending of Cassandra from the version they performed on television, it fits seamlessly.
Just as I am, I need a man who is rhyme with his mind.
Like Just a Notion, Put on Your White Sombrero wasn't even mixed at the time it was recorded. It was left as a rough recording on the multitrack tape. And now, fast forward to 1994, it was rediscovered and embraced by Björn, Benny and Michael Bitretto, so much so that they wanted to release it as one of the very few ABBA outtakes in full length. Björn and Benny found themselves back at Polar Music Studio, together with Michael Bitretto, when they were going through tapes and discovered a bunch of outtakes. And with most of these recordings, they felt they weren't quite finished enough, so Michael Bitretto put them together as excerpts as part of ABBA Undeleted. However, there were two songs that Björn and Benny actually considered to be released in full length, and apparently they had completely forgotten about Put On Your White Sombrero. The second song they considered to be released in full was none other than Just an Ocean, so that song almost had the same destiny as Sombrero, to be released as a full song on that CD box set. They had to mix both songs for the first time in 1994. In the case of Just an Ocean, they were never satisfied with the final mix, so it was put onto ABBA Undeleted as one of the many excerpts. When they mixed Put On Your White Sombrero, they even recorded new elements to it, a few castanets and a trumpet fanfare, overdubs that were probably created by Benny on synthesizer. That means we have basically a prototype of what they would do full on with Just an Ocean when they re-recorded the entire backing track almost 30 years later. And as far as I know, that makes Put On Your White Sombrero the only ABBA recording between 1982 and 2017 which got newly recorded elements. For Björn, Benny and Michael Vitretto, this song and the experience of resuming their work on it felt very special. It was like something inexplicable happened when we began working on this song. That old chemistry between us was suddenly there again. I had forgotten how it was because it was such a long time since the three of us worked together. If I'm not mistaken, this was also the final time that Björn and Benny worked together with Michael Vitretto. The fact that it was an ABBA project and a rediscovery of that music makes for a nice full circle. Today, Benny seems to be so positive about the song and he performs it with his orchestra live in concert since 2016. So, going back to 1994, when this box set was released and this brand new archival ABBA song opened that magical CD4 with unreleased material, what was your experience? The song has quite a long introduction, maybe one of the longest in ABBA's catalogue, an entire instrumental verse. So I imagine that alone must have been thrilling and suspenseful, waiting for those vocals to appear. Did you know that it had lead vocals by Frida, or did you know anything about it before you listened to this song? How else did you discover Put On Your White Sombrero? Let me know in the comments below. It seems we are going through this outtake exploration in a 2-year interval. So next time we are diving into one of ABBA's most fascinating chapters, their final recording sessions for 35 years. Alright, until then, hey-do!